Welcome back to Weekend Sunrise. Now, the Prime Minister has been accused of trying to quietly take out the trash after making a series of controversial announcements this week. The government dumped frontbench ministers Mal Brough and Jamie Briggs and is making significant cuts to school funding.
The opposition says the Turnbull government has been sneaky by making the announcements at a time when very few people are listening. Seems like a smart move if you're in government. Is it? Did they get away with it? Joining us to discuss are our Masters of Spin, Gretel
Guten Tag.
and advertising guru Dan Gregory. Good morning to you, Dan.
Hello.
Certainly as far as dumping the two ministers goes, I mean, that's fairly standard procedure, isn't it? You do it when no one's watching.
Yeah.
And particularly if they're not terribly well loved, as these two didn't seem to be at the time.
You know, it's an interesting thing. It seems smart, but to me it seems more smarty pants than clever.
Right.
I think people are a little bit suspicious of Turnbull's ability to recognise and respect other people's intelligence. And I think as a community we're far more objective about things like this, and we've got a whole press gallery that's wisened up. And I don't think they're going to let Turnbull get away with things like this.
But is no one actually watching? I mean, there's no other news around at this time of year aside from the fireworks.
I actually think it's really smart. I mean, I actually think you're overestimating the general public. I think that, you know when you walk into a room, and the moment you walk into the room, you immediately forget what you went in the room to do.
Yes.
You know, like when you
Like
walk like when you walk into a bar in Hong Kong and you immediately forget that you're a federal minister and the person you're with is a 20-year-old staffer. You know, but that's a psychological phenomenon called the doorway effect. And what researchers at the University of Notre Dame found was just the act of walking through a doorway or crossing a threshold affects the memory in a negative way. And the new year, moving from 2015 to 2016, is actually going through a doorway. So even though, you know, 2015 was only a couple of days ago, and even though these events only happened a couple of weeks ago, psychologically they happened last year. And that's a very deliberate strategy to actually frame something in the past.
But there's a difference between dumping the ministers, and let's face it, I don't think Argentina's shedding too many tears over that, and introducing something like, well, dumping the last 2 years of Gonski funding, which is much bigger, right?
But I think you're also forgetting that there are two other factors here, and one is the opposition, and Tanya Plibersek she's a wily beast. I think she's smart and canny, and she's onto this, and what Turnbull is actually starting to deliver is a commodity for the opposition and the press to be fighting against. And I think the press is something you need as an ally, and the press has been treated with disrespect.
Mind you, there was a lot more attention on the dumping of Mal Brough and Jamie Briggs than there was on the dumping of the Gonski report.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think ultimately that's a bigger issue.
That,
because that's an issue that's not last year's issue. That's an issue that will be carried forward into this year. And the other thing that's interesting is one of the things that drives Malcolm Turnbull's support and his approval rating is the fact that he's seen as both an uppercase and a lowercase liberal. And women voters and families and elderly voters like things like healthcare and education. And when he attacks something like that, he runs the risk of looking like Tony Abbott without the Speedos, and that's an image no one wants to be associated with.
It's true. This is what he's recognised as at the moment, but now another identity is emerging, and that is the guy that will only be associated with good news and will be removed from bad, and I think we're wisened up to that.
Yep. Well, I think when Parliament resumes, of course, we're going to hear a lot more about this Gonski thing, and then the sort of sneaky tag might start to stick.
I think it's going to stick.
And this year, I mean, he has had the honeymoon period. Decisions need to be made. We also need to leave you guys here.
Yes, we're dumping you from our front bench right now.
Very stealthily.
You're done.
That
Enjoy
late
your
night
next
in
trip to
neutral
Hong
bay has
Kong.
come back to haunt you.